Hey everyone, Colin Shadwell back for another video. It's kind of a special video today because I've got my 500th subscriber today. It's a pretty unreal number. 500 is pretty up there, and a lot of room to grow too. So it's the day after Christmas, so I'm uploading a little video here on how I made my ornaments this year. This year I decided to make some Acorn ornaments, or I call them Acornaments, trademark, copyrighted Acornaments. These things are really cool. I made one just to see if I could do it, just to see if I could make an acorn out of clay, and it actually was pretty easy. So I made a whole bunch of them, and then a whole bunch more, and then a whole bunch more. Altogether, I probably made over 100 of these, and I've sold every single one. I'm literally out, which is a great thing to have, and I made a lot of money on the side and gained a lot of experience too. So I wanted to do a little how-to video on how I made these little acornaments. So this is a real quick one that kind of goes through the steps of how you can make them, and maybe you can try to make some too. So here we go. Okay, so you see here I have everything that I need to make the acorn ornaments. I have a piece of clay off to the side that I've rolled out. I've got about, I would say, maybe 8 inches by 10 inches. You can see the thickness here that I rolled out. Let's say it's about maybe a quarter of an inch thick, more or less, rolled out on the slab roller. I think it's just more even keel that way. So I've got this, I don't know, maybe 8 by 10 piece of clay. I also have an X-Acto knife here to cut off the pieces that I need to cut off with. I have this little hole puncher that you can cut varying holes in, and I also use to cut some pieces out as well. I made this tool. It's a little tool that you can use to put the texture on top of the acorn. It's got this little dimple. It's a whole bunch of files that I've taped together, but I'm sure you can find something similar to that. I've got a sponge sitting in water to wet stuff down with. I've got this roll of duct tape, which will help me cut out the perfect circle that I need for the top of my acorn ornament. And then I have this wooden piece that I think you can find in a lot of handicraft stores like a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby. But it's just a piece of wood that people use to sketch, but it's got a rounded top and a kind of a straight edge bottom. That's the perfect kind of mold for what I want for my acorn ornaments here. So I use this for the top and bottom part. So what I want to do to start off here, I want to take my big piece and I want to cut off a piece, I would say roughly 4 by 6 seems like a good size to kind of make the bottom part. I make the bottom half first, so here's my 4 by 6 inch piece of clay. One side smooth, one side's rough. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to smooth out all of this anyway. I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to stick the kind of skinnier end first and kind of bend the clay around and just kind of wrap the clay around so it kind of has the pointy end first like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sandwich the ends together around it and kind of pinch them tight. So I'm just going to wrap the bottom half of this clay together. And this clay that I'm using is probably a little bit drier than I'm usually to. Usually I get it right out of the bag and do this, and it just takes a little longer to dry. But this clay has been sitting out a little bit more. So you can see on the end there it's cracking a little bit. But all I'm trying to do here is just to kind of like pinch this around the edge of the shape. Don't worry about any of that crackiness. It's totally fine. But just trying to pinch this really close while not getting it pinched down to the wood, but just kind of really enveloping it like a burrito. You're making a little acorn burrito basically right here, right now. And once I kind of get this close, and I'm trying to push the clay into the piece too, not just, I don't want there to be gaps or any like air holes in there. Once I got it, I'm going to take my X-Acto blade, clean it off here on the edge of the tape, and I'm going to try to cut this along the edge to get rid of this excess clay that I don't want. So just really smoothly, it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just trying to get most of this clay off of here. So just getting rid of that, you can see when I pull this off here. I've got a little more than I need, a little less in some spots, but you just pinch it back together and we're going to smooth all that out later on. Do the other side, do the same thing as well. Cutting off the edge. And you can see on this one I've got a little bit more than I want. You can always come back and get a little more. It doesn't matter though. If it comes apart like this, it's totally fine. You just pinch it all back together, get it close, and then I just start making sure that it's a nice tight seal in there. You can I tap it with my thumb to kind of like smooth it back down because sometimes there's more clay there than you want. Come around the other side, pinching around that as well. Tapping with my thumb here, blending all this together, just kind of smoothing that clay out. I'm trying to make it look uniform, so it's all the way around, looks like the same thickness. Once I have it where I want it, then I'll use my sponge over here that's sitting in a pool of water, and I'll just use that to dip my thumb in and then just kind of come right here. And I'm just trying to smooth out any little imperfections, just kind of blend everything together so it looks like it's one piece going all the way around. All that cracking at the top doesn't matter because I'm about ready to cut off the top here anyway. But just work my way around really gently. Not a lot of water, just dampen your thumb. That's why I don't even put my whole thumb in the water. I just kind of touch the sponge a little bit just to get enough dampness because I really don't want this to get too wet because I don't want it to become overly elastic. So as I'm working my way around here, once I get it to the point where I want it, smoothing out any big bumps, I'm going to come back in and with the tip. If you look at an acorn, it's kind of, I don't want to make mine sharp at the end, but it's got a little bit of what I would call a dimple. So I come around the end here and just kind of twist and kind of pull that clay out a little bit so it's got not a point, but it comes more, it's not a rounded edge. On acorns, you don't see a rounded spot to it. So I'm just trying to bring that edge out just a little bit, just a nice little touch that I thought works really well. Now that I have the bottom part where I want it, I'm going to get my X-Acto blade back out, and I want to cut this off. And it doesn't need to be perfect at all. I mean, again, I'm going to cover the top of this anyway, so if I'm not perfectly straight all the way around, it's not a big issue because you're not going to see this edge anyway. But just getting off this top layer of excess clay that I don't want, take that out, and then discard that. I'm just going to pop the mold right back out, and I have a bottom half of an acorn ornament. You can see the seams on the inside here. I just take the bottom half of my X-Acto blade, the side that doesn't have the sharp end, and I just kind of blend those together. I'm not sure if it's needed, but in my mind, it makes me feel better that now that they're all one. It's all one piece now. So, okay, so the bottom half is done. I can set it off to the side. That part is finished, and I can leave that alone and let it dry a little bit. I prefer to let, like when I'm doing these in batches, I do 30 or 40 at a time, and I let those sit off to the side. But when I come back to it, it would be a little bit harder than it is right now. But as it is for this video, I'm just going to go ahead and go on the next part. So I don't know why the interior of the duct tape seems to work best, but you just have to find a stencil that works best for you. But for me, I just found that this was the perfect shape. So I used this kind of hole cutter as a way to cut out the inside of this. And it's this size that I want. Couldn't tell you what it is. Looks like maybe 2.5, 3 inches, probably 3 inches long in diameter. So what I need to do now is I'm going to take this and make the curved part for the top. So I'm actually going to use the same tool. I'm going to use the top half of this to kind of like round it over. Because right now it's flat. We don't want that. If I was put it on here, you'd see you have a very flat acorn, but I want to use that to round it over. So all I'm going to do is just put this in one hand and kind of curve the shape of my hand a little bit, and just use the other half to kind of tap this round it over a little bit. So it kind of gives it a I'm always so bad with convex and concave. I think it's concave on the inside, convex on the outside. So you can see here I've kind of got this rounded a little bit. You see my rings there. You always need to watch out for your ring. My ring made a little indentation, but you can smooth it out. It's totally fine. None of that matters. All we're doing here for is to form, to get the right form. So I've kind of got this rounded over the way I wanted to. Now I'm going to combine these two. Now again, usually I would let these guys dry a bit more. I want to get them more leather hard, but they're still like, this clay was already kind of dry to begin with, but we'll go ahead and attach. So I dipped the bottom half into the water just a little bit to get a little connection. And now I'm just going to start wrapping that top edge over the side. Now I want to make sure as I'm doing this that I'm not flattening out. I want to keep my hand curved on the edge. I'm just going to try to get that seam tight against the side there. So just pressing my thumb in, using my fingers, and again I'm keeping my right hand cupped. I don't want that top half to become flat. And it would be hard to now because I've trapped air in there now. So it's really, I'd have to squeeze pretty hard for this to bust open. So I'm just really going on the edge here, smoothing that stuff out, getting a somewhat tight seal. And then I can take my finger here and just kind of like smooth up the excess. I will go back before this becomes totally dry and smooth that underside there. Although it's not a big part, you don't really see that much, but just enough to make sure I got a nice tight seal there. Getting all of that together, and you can see I've got a basic acorn ornament shape. I want to make sure that stays rounded. I don't want to make sure that it gets flat. So here's time for my little dimples that I'm going to put on here. When I did this the first time, I just had one of these tools, and it took me forever to put all the dimples on here. But now I got smart, and I realized I had a lot of these tools, so I just taped a whole bunch of them together, and I just go around the edge. And as I do this, I kind of twist it, so I get kind of a random pattern all along here. I go around the edge first, and then I start working my way to the top. Now, because this has a pocket of air inside of it, the top will stay domed when I tap across here because I'm really pressing against the air on the inside. Now it becomes a little disfigured, which is it's kind of nice. I think it make it looks organic. If your top is like perfectly symmetrical across the top, I think it looks kind of strange. So I don't mind that it kind of gets a little disfigured along the edges. It gives a little bit more organic of a feel. So gently tapping and always kind of turning as I do this, I'm going to come across the top here and really cover this up. I mean, you don't want to see any kind of flat parts. I really kind of keep the whole thing. So I make sure I go all the way around the edge, getting this all the way to the very edge of the top part here. Really covering this up with texture, twisting as I go. And it really kind of makes a cool texture on the top. And it also gives little spots for glaze to pull into when you do glaze this. So there's that top part there. That's done. Now it's time to make the stem, and the stem is really easy. I try to get some clay here that I can work with. I'm just going to go back to my original slab. Now again, this clay is drier than I normally would. I would just usually get a hunk out of the bag, and then I'm going to coil this. So this is dry than I want it to be. It's going to actually break on me here in a minute, but that's fine. So I'm just going to coil this up. Again, it does not have to be perfect because acorn stems are not perfect. I think they need to have a little bumpiness and organicness to them. So I'm not worried about how perfect it's going to be. Break this off into about a 2-inch piece. And then I'm going to hold on to this, leaving a little bit at the end exposed. So like the bottom 1/4 inch exposed that I can tap on the table here. So I'm going to give it a couple tap, tap, taps. And it's going to kind of compress that clay into a bit more of a, I don't know, I feel that acorns at the end of the stem where they're attached to the tree have a bit thicker part. So tapping that almost into a little stamp so it's a bit thicker at the top, thinner at the bottom. And then I'm going to use the edge, just smoothing out some stuff here. I'm going to use the edge of the one of my tools here to bend this around. Now, as I do this, of course, this clay breaks on me. You'll watch here. Beep, and bring it around, snap, of course. If you'd used elastic clay out of the bag, it'd be fine. So I'm just going to pretend you don't see this and just put that right back together. Smooth it out. It's like it never, ever happened. You don't need to see it. So I'm just going to bend that around a little slower this time, squeezing as I go until I get basically I want a candy cane so that I can bend across the top here and it'll look fine. So here we are. Got my candy cane back in there. So now I need to put that inside of that. You see I left myself plenty of stem. That's fine because it can go down there. Got my hole cutting tool. I'm going to put a little hole in the top here. Open this up. Again, this is probably a little bit more wet than I want to, but it's fine. It holds up all right. So I'd usually wait till they're more leather hard to do this. Open up that hole. Just to get a little test fit. Yeah, it's going to go in there. It's fine. Then all I do is just wet the end of basically the stem, put it down in, stick it down until it blends together, and then smooth out the excess. And that pretty much does it. That holds it. Once you put the glaze on there, the glaze will really hold it on. So it seems like really flat, fragile at first, but it totally works at the end here. So you can see here, I want to make sure that everything gets smoothed out. And then you can see after it dries, it lightens up quite a bit, and it shrinks quite a bit too. So this other one that I put on had a little bit bigger of a stem, which is fine. The stems can vary as much as you want. I think it kind of gives a nice distinct look that everyone does not look the same. One of the very last steps that I do in this process is to poke a hole right underneath the lip of the top rim, because when these fire, if there's any extra moisture on the inside, if there's nowhere for that air to go, they will explode. So that tiny little hole is fine for the first firing. It'll help it not explode. And then when you glaze it, you'll never know it's there. So when it's all done, this is me experimenting with my different kind of glazes here. I've got some Potter's Choice glazes, different ones on the top, different ones for the stem, different ones for the bottom. They run down really well. I had a whole bunch of glaze combinations. This is one of the only ones that I kept just because the stem broke on the top. But here's some of the other ones that I had on top and in the bowls. And you can see they turned out really well and they look really nice. So I hope you try to make some of these too. Hope you like the video. Thanks for watching.